Hey everybody, welcome to Church at Home with Rachel for Thursday, the 14th of July. A couple days ago, I posted a video, I think it was called Melba Toast and Cold Beer, and I sort of talked about Holy Communion and the church and things like that. And somebody brought up a great question about open table. So I'd like to just chat about that a little bit today. In case you don't know what it is, open table is the debate, the conversation about who can receive communion. An open table would suggest that's two different things. It would either suggest that anyone who is baptized from any denomination of the Christian church can receive communion in any particular church that has open table. Or open table could also be defined as anyone can receive communion, period. So I'm going to back up a second. In the Anglican Church, in Canada, that's what I serve. I'm a priest in the Anglican Church. We have considered open table in one way, in that if you are a baptized Christian, if you have been baptized in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, you are welcome to receive communion at our altars. When we have communion services, you are welcome to receive communion. And that's changed. There's some Anglicans who remember the days when you had to be confirmed before you could have communion. And as a matter of fact, when I was in my parish in Halifax, my first confirmation service came up. The bishop was coming, and the person who had sort of taken charge of leading the confirmation classes asked me about having a rehearsal the day before the bishop was coming, just so the kids would be comfortable and know what was happening. I thought, okay, no problem, we can do that. So we went through everything and talked about how they would kneel before the bishop, and the bishop would lay his hands, her hands, it was Bishop Sue Moxley, she would lay her hands on their heads, and she would, they would be confirmed, and the Holy Spirit would be invoked upon them, and they would be confirmed. Okay, no problem. And then he said, well, they need to learn how to take communion. I just about died. That was in 2012 or 2013. Now, in 1977, I received my first communion. I certainly was not confirmed. I wasn't confirmed until I was in grade 8, and I was 13. So that would probably be 1984. I think it was 1984 when I was confirmed, or 83. But I had been receiving communion since I was knee-high to a grasshopper. I had my first communion classes when I was 6 years old. We moved then from St. Thomas, where I received communion, to Listowel, where they did not yet practice the idea that a child baptized could receive communion. Everyone else received communion after confirmation, which caused a bit of consternation because my mom would come down and get me after the sermon and bring me upstairs for the Eucharistic prayer, and I would have communion and go back to Sunday school. But I was the only young person who did. And that variation happened in different churches we were in until I was confirmed in Niagara Falls, and then no big deal. So in the Anglican Church, up until quite a while ago, but for some people quite recently, or maybe not at all, the sort of the entrance to communion, to be able to receive the bread and the wine, was to be confirmed in the church. And then the church in Canada anyway, the Anglican Church, took another look at that and said, no, that the entry into communion is baptism. You must be baptized in order to receive communion. Okay, so in any Anglican church, if you are baptized, you can receive communion. And the difference is that the Anglican Church, at least in Canada, you can be baptized Roman Catholic, Baptist, you can be baptized Presbyterian, Lutheran, whatever your denomination is. As long as you're baptized, you can receive communion. Okay, now some places have closed table. And 99 times out of 100, the Roman Catholic Church, for instance, has closed table, where if you are baptized in the Roman Catholic Church, you are welcome to receive communion. Otherwise, you can just come forward for a blessing. Now, I have been in churches, I will not name them, I don't want to get any priests in trouble, but I have been in churches where I have gone forward as a priest, as an Anglican priest in a Catholic church, wearing my collar, the works, and expected to receive a blessing, and have been given communion, have been given the Eucharist. Just the bread, not the wine. That's a topic for another day, because I don't really understand that one, but I have received communion. Now, my sense is that their bishop wouldn't have approved of that, but this was more of a recognition of colleagues, I guess. I'm not sure. Or maybe even advanced, a more forward-thinking theology on the part of the priest. Either way, I won't say no to communion. I appreciate it. But so there's open communion in that all who are baptized are welcome to receive the Eucharist, and that is present in the Anglican Church. I won't speak for other denominations because I'm not sure. In the Roman Catholic Church, generally speaking, it's closed table, only if you are considered to be a Roman Catholic, a citizen, so to speak, of the Roman Catholic Church, having been received into the Catholic Church. If you were not baptized Roman Catholic, but you have done the RCIA, I can't remember Roman Catholic, I can't remember what that stands for, but basically you have done the work of becoming Roman Catholic and have been received into the Roman Catholic Church, and hence, I believe, then you can, I don't think you have to be rebaptized. I don't believe in rebaptism, but I think then you can receive. Somebody who's Catholic can correct me or affirm that statement for me, but they have basically what's called closed table. Now, before I get into open table in a different definition, I'd like to say that one of the things I really love about our Canadian Armed Forces is that they have an open table mandate. So if you are, for instance, here at CFB Wainwright, we have a Roman Catholic priest, Tony, awesome guy, and he has Roman Catholic services every Sunday. So anybody on the base who is Roman Catholic can come and they can have communion. And they do celebrate communion weekly, which is their Roman Catholic style. That's what they do. So they have Roman Catholic communion is available to the Roman Catholics at CFB Wainwright every Sunday, as long as Tony or a Roman Catholic priest is present. There you go. The Protestants, they don't have like an Anglican service, a Baptist service, a Pentecostal service. What they have is what's called a Protestant. So there's the Roman Catholics, the Protestants, and they also have imams for Muslim, rabbis for Jews. I think there's now a humanist Protestant or humanist chapel. I'm not sure what that means, or how that works. But I think they're working on a Buddhist chaplain in the process, and looking or things like that. So currently there's Roman Catholic and Protestant worship. And so the Protestant worship, I believe the mandate is that one Sunday a month will be communion. And the rest are called divine worship. And those services are sort of a hodgepodge of all of the different Protestant denominations. Anglican is not Protestant, but it's lumped in with that. So that includes that. And it's one of those services that sort of like doesn't do anybody any good. I shouldn't say it. The worship itself is beautiful because people, when they gather with appropriate hearts and minds to worship God, is always beautiful. The liturgy itself is a little, because it's been pulled together to be sort of an ecumenical service, it sort of gives something from everybody, but not enough of anything of your own. So it's sort of the beauty comes in coming together to worship, not because it's a finely honed liturgy, put it that way. But then one Sunday a month, there is a communion service, and that communion service then falls under the denomination of who the chaplain is who's celebrating that day. So if my husband is on that day and it's the fourth Sunday of the month or whatever day they have Eucharist, it'll be an Anglican communion. If that chaplain happened to be Baptist, it would be a Baptist communion or United Church or whatever it was. So communion. And again, the table is open. Anybody of any person is welcome to receive communion at the Protestant service. Now, I do believe that technically it's the Roman Catholic priest could close the service and allow only Roman Catholics to receive communion, because there is opportunity for Protestants to receive communion in the Protestant chapel or in the Protestant service. However, things get a little muddy when you deploy or you go overseas. Or, for instance, if you're a chaplain on a ship, when you lead your Sunday worship or whenever your worship is, you offer that worship in whatever the form you would normally do. So Eucharist, when my husband was sailing, he would offer a Sunday Eucharist every Sunday, and it would be open table. Anybody who showed up could receive communion. Well, when it's a Roman Catholic priest who is, for instance, the only chaplain available, guess what? Because that is the only way that any Christian person can receive communion, because there's a limited space, it's an enclosed space on the ship, and there's no opportunity for people to go to a Protestant or to their own denomination for communion, they are welcome to receive communion with the Roman Catholics. It's just one of those things about the Canadian Armed Forces that I think is absolutely fantastic. I'm not sure about the U.S. Who knows? Maybe it's the same. I hope so. But I think it's beautiful. And I think it's a step in the right direction to where I think we're all called to head as Christians. Now, the other question about open table. Open table is also being debated as that place where any person who feels so called can come forward to receive the body and blood of Christ, the bread and the wine. In the Anglican Church, I am, by canon or by rubric, by the rules, to say any baptized Christian is welcome to receive communion at the table, at the altar. The fact is that I don't check for your baptismal certificate when you come forward for communion, because there is an argument that is made, and I tend to lean into it myself. This is me as a person, not me representing the church, but me as a person, do believe that if the Holy Spirit calls you to come forward in a church that you're not used to being in, and you're not a baptized member of, so you're probably not really, well trained in what's happening and what's understanding. If somehow you feel called to stand up in front of a bunch of strangers and follow them up to receive what we refer to as the body and blood of Christ, if you feel called to do that, despite the fact that if you don't know what it is, it sounds really strange, and you're doing something completely different, that lots of people would be like, well, I don't know what that is, so I think I'm going to hang back. If you feel called to do that, that I believe is the Holy Spirit calling and is working in your life, and who am I to say to you, no, you can't come? Even more basic than that, when we look at the stories of Jesus, he was not an observer of persons. He didn't say, well, if you're a Jew, you're great. If you're a Gentile, like in his teaching, he came around to the point where he was teaching, he was sharing healing with the Gentiles and teaching. Remember the Syrophoenician woman who said that when Jesus said to her, no, I won't heal your daughter because you're not a Jew, she said to him, even the dogs get to pick up the crumbs under the table. And he said, go, your faith has made her well, basically. That's a very bad paraphrase. But Jesus didn't seem to be a discerner of people. He didn't seem to be saying, you know what, you get to, but you don't. He seemed to be very inclusive. Around his table, he fed Judas, whom he knew was going to betray him. I mean, if there's a reason why you shouldn't be able to receive communion, that kind of betrayal, you'd think that would be it. And yet Judas was allowed to receive. So, in my mind, as a person, separate from the doctrines and dogmas of the church, I do think that we should be moving toward open table in its greatest form. That any person who feels called to come forward to participate, to me, receiving that nourishment, the body and blood, the bread and the wine, is like feeding a starving person. You can't teach them about God. You can't teach them the wonderful things of Jesus if they're listening to their stomach rumbling and they're thirsty. How about we feed them and we give them drink and we nourish their bodies, and then we start nourishing their souls. So, thank you. I can't remember exactly who it was who asked that, or who brought up the point about open table, but thank you for that, and thank you for encouraging me to take this opportunity to talk about that. Let me know what you think. I mean, I'm open to everybody's ideas. I don't have a set, I'm learning as we go. Life is all about learning, and I'm just exploring and wondering and seeing where God's taking me. So let me know what you think. Have a great day, and I will see you again tomorrow for Church at Home with Rachel on Friday.